Ever since we built the old 64 C10, I've been looking forward to this day. The truck has a fresh 400 small block, a 700 R4 transmission, and vintage air, heat, and air conditioning. That should make this 6-hour trip down to Wilkesboro, North Carolina pretty enjoyable. My only real concern at this point is this additional fuel tank that we put in the bed that has been plugging fuel filters every 20 miles. At least that was the case before Jeremy cleaned the fuel tank out with a shop vac. So I came fully prepared to do battle with this fuel filter all the way to North Carolina. I moved the fuel filter up near to the carburetor so it was easier to get to, and it was a good thing I did because I didn't even make it across the Ohio state line into West Virginia before I had to stop, pull over, and clean it out. I was holding out hope that this would be the last time that I'd have to pull the filter, that maybe that was just some residual trash left in the fuel lines. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. I stopped 5 times between the Ohio-West Virginia border and the Virginia state line to clean out this fuel filter. By the time I made it down to the Virginia-North Carolina border at Fancy Gap, I was already 2.5 hours behind schedule getting to my hotel, and by this time the carburetor had so much dirt in it that the old pickup truck would barely even idle when I stopped at a traffic light. I'm not even sure what time it is, but it's pretty late. This has been a trip from hell. This fuel tank that we put in is full of rust and junk. It's terrible. It's plugged the fuel filter 5 times on the way down here. It's just been bad. It's just been bad. I just stopped here, topped the fuel tank off, both tanks, and cleaned the fuel filter, and this time the fuel filter was the cleanest I've seen it during the whole trip after 100 miles. So hopefully we're getting the vast majority of this trash out of the fuel system. And I had to take the idle mixture screws out of the carburetor and spray brake cleaner in the idle mixture screw holes because the carburetor's full of dirt. It wouldn't hardly idle. Stop at a stop sign or something, it'd die. But I pulled the idle mixture screws out, shot brake cleaner in them with straw, put them back in, readjusted them, and it's sitting there idling now. The best it's idled in the last 400 miles. I'm gonna get back on the road. I was supposed to be at the hotel around 12:30, and I think it's around 3 o'clock in the morning now, and I'm still not there. So I'm gonna get back on the road and get going again. Now luckily by this time I was only about an hour to an hour and a half away from my hotel, but I still needed to stop at a sheet station right along 77 to fill up some jugs with E85, so I had plenty of fuel for the Malibu once I get to Wilkesboro. By the time I got to the sheet station and got my E85, I smelled like gasoline and I was so tired, I just didn't want to record anything else. I did manage to make it to the hotel and got about 5 hours sleep total before it was time to get back up the next morning and head to the track, which is roughly 5 or 6 miles due west of town, right off 421. And don't worry, if you've never been here, you won't be able to miss that sign. Paul, the guy that runs the track, told me just to pull the old 64 right down in the staging lanes and set up shop. No reason to park out in the pits. It's just me and a handful of other people here today testing at a private track rental. I unloaded the Malibu and got acquainted with the shutdown and the turnoff off the end of the track, since I've never actually raced here before myself. The very last time I was here was when Billy raced his purple Mustang at a no prep event, and the Mustang lost control at about 500 feet, hit the wall, and was cut in half by the scoreboard. Luckily, the driver walked away with hardly a scratch, but the old I-beam down there on the scoreboard still bears witness to the accident to this day. The facility here at Wilkesboro is absolutely gorgeous. It reminds me a lot of Bristol Dragway, with excellent seating and accommodations for spectators and a track surface that's really fast to 330 feet. The track surface is an equalizer between nitrous and turbo cars. And while I was up checking out the track surface, I decided to go up and say hi to Paul and see how he's doing. What's going on, man?
What's happening?
Thank you for inviting us down here.
Not a problem.
So tell us about this place. You're running this track now, right?
Yep.
So the last time we were here, we had a major catastrophe down there on the scoreboard.
Yep.
And
before my time.
That was a little before your time. So that was the last time we were here. I love this place. I've always loved this place. We've been here 2 or 3 times. And I call it Little Bristol because it's just absolutely gorgeous. It looks like Bristol Dragway, but on a smaller scale. So what's going on? You take this place over.
Yeah, I came down beginning of last season. A friend of mine back home had bought it and asked me to come down, and it's been that way since. So
awesome. And you live here.
Yeah.
So if anybody's thinking about coming down here and blasting down the track when you think nobody's here, you live here.
They might make it down, but
they might make it down, but they might not make it out.
might be some bucks out in the tail end. It's an awesome place.
It's beautiful.
I love it.
So what's your goals for this place? Is this going to be a bracket track, a little no prep going on? What's going on?
It's a little bit of a struggle at first, getting people to trust me, but we're trying to do a little bit of a mix of everything. It's the only way we'll stay open is a little bit of bracket, a little bit of no prep.
Yeah, you got to have a little bit of everything. Yeah. And the hard part is keeping everybody happy, because the bracket guys don't necessarily care for the no prep guys. The no prep guys absolutely don't care for the bracket guys. So it's like going to Christmas with two sides of a family. One's a Democrat and one's a Republican, and then nobody gets along.
We all have that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to meld the two things together too. I'm trying to get involved where I get kind of no prep guys to get into like a bracket index type racing.
Yes.
I feel like we can pull the two groups together a little bit.
Yes.
To some degree. We're never going to get all of them, but.
Well, I'll tell you what I think, and I've seen it myself up home, is that the bracket guys are very reluctant to change. They don't want nothing to do with it until they see the crowd of people there to watch, and you tell them there's index racing.
Yeah.
And if you do it right, if you promote it right, you can really put the two together that way.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of people up home that were bracket racers forever. I mean, even super stock guys.
Mm-hmm.
We've even had super stock and stock eliminator guys try no prep, and they had a blast.
Mm-hmm.
The hard thing about index is turning the boards on, because the bracket guys need the boards on and the rest of them don't. So inevitably somebody in the tower forgets to turn the boards off and stuff like that. So it can be difficult. There's certain things, there's certain aspects of the two that are difficult to combine, but it's not impossible.
I'd like to do it by time slip.
Yeah.
And leave the boards off.
Leave the boards off.
Somebody gets it, you'll know if you lost,
Right.
Your time slip's going to dictate that. So.
Yeah. You just have to teach the people in the ET shack to split the slips and all that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's always kind of a thing up home. We've had that problem where somebody got the wrong time slip and they get mad. The no time guys are real, they're sticklers about that. But
we just we're forced to replace the timing system because of some lightning strikes last season.
Oh, really?
But the new system's allowing us to print separate time slips.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
that's nice. Well, that's really nice.
Yeah.
I wish we had that up home.
Yeah.
It'd make life a lot easier for
does.
Because you've usually got somebody down there in the ticket shack, a young boy or young girl that's, doing something part-time job, and they don't really understand what's going on. They don't understand what cars are what. They don't understand really. They're just doing the best they can. A lot of times.
Here, same thing, because we have the fuel pumps are at the same place, so we might be pumping 5 gallons of fuel at the same time, trying to hand out a slip. So
yeah, dude, I saw that old Sunoco shack down there. That's cool.
Yeah, we're actually gonna raffle that sign off. We're replacing the bleachers with the money that we got from
nice.
That. So next run around, we're gonna try to add some Jersey barriers. Try to finish out the track with that. So
nice.
Yeah, we're putting whatever we can back into it.
So once I finished up talking to Paul and checking out the track surface, it was finally time to start getting the Malibu ready to go up and make some passes. I got out some of my Jack's Wax detailer, cleaned all the road grime off the car, checked the tire pressures, fired the engine up and let the bottle warm up with the bottle heater, and finally decided on a game plan for how I wanted to tackle the day. All right, guys, so we're getting ready to go up and make our first hit. Now, I'm going to start out just running this car on motor, because I've got a whole new front shock set up on this car, with not whole new, but just different front shocks. I'm working on tire pressure today. I want to try and figure out where I need to be on tire pressure. We're doing water burnout, which is fine. However, it's your typical bracket track where they run dragsters and the water box is way back away from the starting line. Bracket events are generally prepped, okay? So they're not worried about the cars dragging rubber out there like no prep events are. No prep events, they'll pour the puddles out real close to the starting line, and everybody's doing burnouts across the starting line to try and get the starting line to come around. But bracket events, they don't do that. The water box is usually way back away so that the dragsters don't drag a lot of water out the starting line, And so that's the way we're doing things today. We're gonna test and tune like we were at a bracket event with water, and the burnout box is way far away from the starting line. So what that means is for me to do a burnout and get any rubber up there, I have to do a very long burnout, which means I need to start my tire pressure down just a little bit lower than where I normally would. However, I don't really even know where I need to start. So we're just gonna do the best we can today and try and work our way through this and see how things go. But I'm gonna start at 12 pounds of air pressure in the tires on motor. We're gonna start at 12 and we'll see what the videos look like when we get after this pass. So by this time, I've got the Malibu pretty much ready to go. The track's just about ready to go. And between me, Sam, and Pete, we've all come up with a game plan on how to video everything today. This will be the first time we've all three worked together doing videography. So I'm sure there'll be a few little things we'll have to work out along the way. We went up and made 2 motor hits first just to get started and see how the car reacts to the track, the tire pressures, and the shock settings.
All right, Bill.
Yeah.
Tell me about the first 2 passes.
Okay, so the first pass, we started off with tire pressure at 12 PSI cold. And it's a long burnout, it's a long spot there to get from the water to the burnout or the starting line. So it was a long burnout. I figure they're probably around 13 pounds by the time I made the pass. First pass looked good, had a lot of wrinkle in the tire, a lot of distortion. I felt like it needed more air. So the second pass I started at 13 pounds cold, long burnout. And the 60 foot was actually the same, almost to the thousandth. I did, however, change shift points from first to second. And I think that slowed the car down a little bit. I raised the shift point just a little bit. I held first gear a little longer. And I think that slowed the car down just a little bit. But it's a bracket car. It's 145, 60 foot, both times. Went 688 and 686. It slowed down a little bit the second one, probably because of the shift point that I raised. But
very clean and consistent.
Very clean. I mean, this thing literally came right off the ramps. Shout out to Billy, because I had Warrior front shocks on this car, and Viking makes a Warrior, which is an economy dual adjustable, and then the Crusaders, which cost a little bit more, but the valving is a little bit tighter for faster, higher horsepower cars. And I was maxed out on my Warrior shocks with the extension rate. The rebound, I was full tight, and I still couldn't slow it down enough. And they told me that was probably going to happen if I got the car into the low 10s. So Billy just swapped his S10 from stock suspension to whatever he did. Looks like a dune buggy now, but whatever.
Hey now.
Yeah, but so he had a not brand new, used set of Crusaders off his S10, and the G-body and the S10 are the exact same suspension. So we pulled his Crusaders out of his S10 and we put them in the Malibu before we came down here. And he told me start at 13 clicks on the rebound. It should be pretty close. And literally came off the ramps and went 145, 60 foot twice in a row. No trouble. The tire looked a lot better on the second pass. Didn't have as much distortion, although the 60 foot was the same. It's a 700 R4. It's got a 306 low gear. So it comes really fast. Yeah. And I'm a little bit leery of putting too much nitrous to it in low gear, because I'm afraid I won't be able to shift it fast enough. Yeah. I'm also concerned about possibly breaking the input shaft. It's got a stock input shaft in it, so I don't really want to throw a bunch of spray at it in low gear. I'd like to start fading it in right at the top of low gear in a second and then just throw it in. But we're on winter blend E85 today. It's not the highest quality E85, especially for pump E85. So I'm a little bit concerned about the amount of 87 octane pump gas that's mixed in with my E85. It's actually down around E70. Okay. So I'm not sure if I'm going to turn both kits on today. I don't think that's probably a good idea with the fuel that's in the tank right now. But I can definitely turn the first stage on, which is a 150 horsepower jet. So I think that's what we're about to do. I think we're going to go ahead and turn the first kit on and just see what one stage does, just 150. We'll progress it in so that we don't break the transmission, we don't break the input shaft, we don't knock a tire off, and we'll just see what a difference 150 shot makes. So the old Malibu came right off the ramp swinging. A 145 60-foot twice in a row, 686 and 688 ET on motor in the 8th. The best 60-foot the Malibu has ever posted was leaving on nitrous without a ramp, and that was 141 60-foot at Edgewater last season. It's already going 145 60-foot on motor alone with the new 421. But given the fact that the 700 R4 still has a stock input shaft and planetary set in it, I delayed the nitrous a half a second and put it on a 1-second ramp to keep from breaking the transmission. First nitrous pass right off the trailer, the car goes a 141 60-foot with the nitrous delayed and the 1-second ramp. All right, so we made technically 3 nitrous hits. The first one, I had to abort it. There was some dirt or something out there on the track. No big deal. They cleaned that up, and I went up and made a second hit, and the car went like 642 or 641, something like that. And I noticed that when I stuck it in high gear, the RPM doesn't drop very much, not nearly like it should. So I thought what I would do is I'd come up and make another hit exactly the same. Like, I'm not making any major changes. I always try and make 2 hits just to verify what I'm seeing. And the second hit, I went ahead and grabbed the button on the shifter to lock the converter, and unfortunately the converter never locked. So the 2 passes were almost identical. But you know, the car's been PRI and new engine and all this stuff, and it's hard to tell really what's going on. That's the first time I've tried to lock the converter on nitrous since it went like 1056 at 125 at trails last fall. So I don't know, we'll dig into it. So at this point, I've tied my best 60-foot ever, and I've already set a new personal best of 641 at 106 mile an hour in the Malibu. There's not a whole lot left for me to work on with the car in the condition that it's in and not being able to lock the converter. So me, Sam, and Pete went over and got a little bite to eat at the concession stand since Paul was nice enough to make hamburgers and hot dogs for everybody. Now that we're all finished with what we need to do at the track, I start turning my attention to some extracurricular activities that I had planned once we got done. So before we pack up and leave, I wanted to go up and visit Paul up in the tower and thank him for his hospitality and for inviting us down here to test the Malibu today and get some of these bugs worked out of the car. It turns out once I told Paul what I had planned for this evening, he was interested in helping with that as well. You see, when I found out that I was definitely coming to Wilkesboro, North Carolina to the track to test, I also wanted to see if I could lock in a little grudge race on the street. And I called a friend of mine that I had met in North Carolina a few years ago, who knows everybody and knows all the spots. And it didn't take him but about 20 minutes to come up with a grudge race for my old Malibu. It turns out there's some pretty fast daily drivers around the Wilkesboro, North Carolina area that all frequent a local speed shop right in town. It's only about a 15-minute drive from Wilkesboro Dragway to Carolina Performance. Now these guys specialize in tuning high horsepower, late model, fuel-injected street cars. And it just so happens that they felt like one of their own personal cars would be a perfect matchup for a little grudge race out on the street with my old Malibu. So as soon as I left the track, I made a beeline straight to Carolina Performance to see what it is that they had in store for me this evening. Now I didn't ask too many questions because grudge racing on the street isn't about show and tell. But what they did offer was that this Trailblazer SS is a 6-liter with a blower and a 4L80E swap. So we've got an old school 23-degree small block Chevy with a carburetor and a nitrous kit, staring down a fuel-injected 6-liter LS with a blower. A classic case of old school technology that most people today consider antiquated and not worth messing with, taking on the 6-liter LS fuel-injected blown Trailblazer SS from Carolina Performance. Now everybody thinks that I absolutely hate LS engines, but the truth of the matter is I just love small block Chevys and despise all the stupid people that have been telling me for years that the old small block Chevy cannot compete with the new LS engines. We all went out to dinner at Dodge City Steakhouse before we headed to the spot. And while I'm sitting there eating dinner, the only thing I can think about is what's going to happen on the internet if I actually lose to this Trailblazer. No matter what happens or why, if I can't pull out the win here, it's going to be a rough week on the internet next week. The Trailblazer SS spun the tires on the hit and never recovered. And even though the Malibu didn't make its best pass on the street, it was good enough to get the win. And I was very thankful to Parnell Earl, who set the race up for me. Once we got done hanging out and talking about the race, we considered taking the Malibu back and putting it on the dyno at Carolina Performance. Do you feel like taking it back to the shop and putting it on there?
It's up to you, and there's only one way to find out.
What time is it?
It's 8:30.
Let's go. I think everybody there was kind of eager to see exactly what kind of power the Malibu was putting down with the current tune-up that's in the car right now. Basically just running on the first stage only of the dual stage plate.
Bill, what's the plan here? What are we looking for? We're looking for 5 digits.
No.
No, 5 digits.
The main thing, I don't even care. It makes what it makes. I don't really care what it makes. The main reason I want to do this tonight is I would like to figure out what the converter slippage is, so that when I get home I can call Bubba Rafferty at Perfect Converter Company and say, here's where it's at. This is hard data. This is on the rollers. This is calculated converter slippage on 150. Yeah. And I wish I could turn them both on so I could really get a good reading, but I just don't dare do it on that fuel.
Understandable. Need some good E85 and
yeah. If it had like what is that red stuff?
The orange.
Well, it's
or Ignite
red.
E85, like orange or whatever.
Well, it's Ignite Red is what we used to use, and I really like that stuff. If it had Ignite Red on, I wouldn't have no trouble turning both kits on.
If I come see you this weekend, Brown's Oil Service, who sponsors us in Indy, is a dealer for Ignite. And
really?
I might be able to bring you some pails of that stuff.
Nice. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Not physically.
I help you out.
You've already helped me out a lot filming for me. No, you have. I've never had anybody film for me. I've never had help.
This is going to be a movie. North Carolina the movie.
North Carolina the movie. The first pull we made was on motor, and it made 420 to the rear wheels. Then we turned the nitrous kit on. The first stage is jetted to 150 horsepower, and the car jumped from 448 horsepower on motor to 620 horsepower and 690 foot-pounds of torque on just the first stage. Is that pretty decent for a wheel on something like this?
Yeah, I'll take your drivetrain loss.
Did you have it on the engine dyno?
The engine dyno, it said made 540, and it made 440 on motor to the wheels.
Yeah, that's 15% drivetrain loss.
Yeah.
So you're right in the ballpark.
Well,
They made
540.
That's about right then. Say 15% drivetrain loss, 15 to 18% through an automatic.
you, sir, have a badass street car is what they're basically saying.
This is my daily.
You have a badass daily street car.
It ain't bad.
It's still not a Coyote though.
Bruh. That boy is always riding the Acme Rocket right into a brick wall someplace.
He
Coyote.
never get against the road runner.
Yeah. You heard me? So that's what the car made on just the first stage of this Nitrous Express billet crossbar plate. But hopefully the next time I come down, I'll be prepared to light the other stage too. Robert, I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. I had a great time. We had a good time going out to dinner. Appreciate you being here for us. Anytime we come to Wilkesboro, Carolina Performance, right?
Carolina Performance.
After we finished up at Rob Dollar's shop, it was time to head back to the Hampton Inn and park the Malibu for the night. I put up a teaser video on Facebook and then went to bed, got up the next morning and warmed up the Malibu. Well. Look who it is.
Did you hear what I just said?
What?
I heard Malibu run. I said, oh, there's Bill getting everybody all stirred up this morning.
There's some yahoo outside with a loud car. Yeah.
God, teenage Yahoo people. They need to respect their elders, Bill.
People are trying to sleep around
I
here.
know. We would be sleeping.
So after I woke everyone up, letting the Malibu idle out underneath the mezzanine, it was time to jump in the car, turn the heater on, and head to the track. It was only about 27 degrees this morning, and there was frost on the car when I went out to start it up. But once I got some heat in the car, I jumped on 421 and headed west out towards the track. Paul had allowed me to store the truck and trailer in his shop overnight, so I went in, opened the shop up, backed a 64 outside, and got ready to start loading the Malibu on the trailer. Once I had the car all loaded up and tied down, I organized everything in the back of the truck and started getting ready to make my way home. All right, guys, I'm all loaded up. I'm getting ready to head home. A little tired. I've had about 8 hours total sleep in the last 48 hours, but just so thankful for this opportunity to come down here and test with these people and hang out. And it was really nice. It was a private deal, so there wasn't like a whole bunch of people hanging around. It's just very difficult, guys, when I'm trying to work and I'm trying to film and I'm trying to tune on the car. It's just not the time for visitors. And I'll make time for that soon. I think I'm going to come back down here to Wilkesboro in a few months for another race, and maybe even put on a race of my own down here. I was talking to Paul, the guy that runs the track, and I really like this guy. He's super nice. He's done a lot for this place, and I'd like to do anything I can to support him. So it's time to head home. Now, I've mentioned a handful of times in the last year that I wouldn't mind putting on one of my own drag and drive style events. And North Wilkesboro Dragway is in close proximity to another track over in Newport, Tennessee that I would also like to work with, maybe in the next year or so. And that's what I was thinking about on my 7-hour ride back home up through Virginia and West Virginia back to Ohio. I was also quickly realizing the need to be able to lock the converter in third gear in this 700 R4 as I was climbing Fancy Gap. I've definitely got a handful of upgrades that I want to do to the 64 before I make this trip again, towing the trailer. But in all honesty, outside of this fuel tank causing me problems with my fuel filter, I really didn't have too bad of a trip, and the truck did a really good job given its first outing. And I really couldn't be happier with the Malibu. I think if I could have locked that converter, it probably would have gone into the 630s in the 8th. All right, everybody, welcome back to the shop. We're back. We're back in Ohio. We're back home. Everything's good. We made it here okay. Had a little problems with the 64 on the way home. We'll get to that, but probably in the next video. I want to give a huge shout out to Paul Salvatore down at Wilkesboro Dragway. Thank you, man. I really appreciate everything you did for us. Made us lunch, gave me someplace to store my truck and trailer. It was just wonderful. I had a wonderful time. I kind of look forward to coming back pretty soon maybe and doing some more testing because I was just thinking about this here once I got home. The car was so consistent down there. 145 60-foot on motor off the trailer twice. I mean, I could have bracket raced it down there on nitrous. It went within 200s on the 2 nitrous passes. It was just really good. It's just a really good place to go test. Beautiful scenery. It's a beautiful drive down. Kind of looking forward to maybe coming back here pretty soon because there's some things I want to test, and it's very important that the car be consistent in order to test certain things like what I'm trying to do. Maybe testing different preps, different carburetors, different tires. The thing of it is, if you go test and the car's not consistent, your data is basically worthless. You've got to have a good solid foundation, a good solid consistent car to begin testing with, or otherwise whatever you're trying to test, you don't know whether you're helping or hurting. So I feel like we've got a really good baseline here. The Malibu is doing very, very well. I'm very happy with it. I'm very happy with things the way they turned out. I do think that I've got some suspension work to do on the back because I felt like the car was a little bit loose. It was up on the tire at the end of the 8th mile pass, and I think basically what was happening was the rear suspension, the bar angles, the instant center is set so aggressive that when you start applying a lot of power to the track in second and high gear, the car is trying to extend the rear shocks and it separates, the rear suspension separates, and I'm afraid that it may be separating out to the point where there's no more suspension travel downward left to soak up the low spots in the track surface. So I felt it in the car down there, and I feel like the mile an hour was down from where it should be, and I was concerned that it maybe the converter was too loose, However, I think there's a really good chance it might have been wheel speed due to the fact that it was up on the tire and there was no suspension travel left in the rear. There's no reason why I should feel the car lose a tire down there like that. It's not a track situation. It's my suspension. And I think it'd be a really good thing for me to go down there and try a different bar angle and bring the car back down and put it in the same lane. The other thing I'm working on is testing some different tire preps to do burnouts in. And they had one lane that was mildly prepped, like a test and tune prep, which was the left lane. The right lane hadn't been touched at all. So I know there's still one lane down there that's really good for no prep. And what I would like to do is get down and try some different compounds. I'm working with a new company. I haven't said too much about it yet because I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I want to have legitimate data, and if I tell you this stuff is good or if it works or whatever, and just start telling people that this is a good product when I haven't really tested it or tested all the different compounds that they offer and back-to-backed it myself personally to see what the differences are. So I want to work on that soon. I want to try some different carburetors. I want to try the 750 versus a 950, maybe an 850 annular. I've got all three of those here. I can try 3 different carburetors on this thing and see which one makes the most power, makes the best ET. So there's a whole bunch of things that I want to do on this car and things I want to test. One, I need to find out why the torque converter didn't lock on that last nitrous pass. That was a real bummer. But it can't be but just a loose wire or something. I'll dig into that this week, maybe this weekend, and find out what that situation was. Another thing I noticed is the front end needs a line because it's wearing the tires on the inside, and that's mostly due to the fact that it's the original alignment to the car and it's set to make turns, you know. And this car basically just goes straight with the front end way up in the air. And when the front end's way up in the air, the front tires lean in and probably toe out a little bit. So I'd like to get that taken care of soon. Also, before I get off here, I want to say thank you to the Dollar family for inviting me down to the shop at Carolina Performance and dyno testing the car for me while I was there. That was really nice. Also, Sam and Pete Walsh from Young and Boosted, who came down to film for me. And by the way, Sam filmed a lot more down there behind the scenes that I haven't shown you, and that's going to be on his channel. That's going to be something different. No one has ever gone and just specifically filmed what it's like to deal with me on a weekend testing and filming and everything that we had going on. I don't think that's ever been done before. I don't usually showcase myself. I try to showcase my family and what's going on here. And so that's going to be on Sam's channel, Young and Boosted. You might want to go subscribe to them to see what Sam puts up. I haven't seen any of that footage. I have no idea what all he has filmed other than what he's shared with me for my video. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's hard to tell. I haven't seen any of it. I have no idea what that's going to be like. That's going to be new for me. So subscribe to Sam Walsh's channel, he and David, Young and Boosted on YouTube. Also, before I get off here, Vicky just texted me and reminded me to remind you guys that we have the steel signs back in stock. The Gasoline and Freedom shop signs, they're back here. So if you guys want to get on the website, theoldmansgarage.shop, and place an order for the steel signs, if you've been waiting on those, they're here. Miss Harley's ready to start shipping them out. Also, some other stuff in stock online. I haven't been here, so I don't know. I haven't gotten the full details yet of what's going on. Vicky will be here tomorrow to probably go over that stuff. Some of you may know that Tommy had surgery on his knee today. He tore his ACL playing basketball a few weeks ago. And so he had his surgery today. She's been busy helping him and Allison get Tommy situated. They're actually all in the house right now. We just got done eating dinner. So I'm going to get back in there to visit with them, get my video done, and get it uploaded. Thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you for supporting my family. Thank you for everything. Thank you for supporting my friends. Again, Young and Boosted on YouTube. Sam is a wonderful young man. His family wonderful people. His dad, wonderful person. They came down and helped me all weekend, followed me most of the way home to make sure I got home when I was having some problems with the truck. So I really appreciate everything they did for us. I can't thank you guys enough. See you on the next trip, guys. Good night.